we're back for another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break. Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do whatever you can to support us right here at the Lakers Fast Break, it is truly appreciated. I do want to go ahead and make sure that everyone remembers the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As we celebrate Martin Luther King Day today, please do not forget where this day comes from and the great words that this man said. So hopefully everyone out there will go ahead and just remember what this day is all about. So hopefully you will honor the great man that he was, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But here today to talk about today's game, which unfortunately wasn't as great. And I'll tell you what, right now, it was just a disappointing effort. The Lakers don't learn their lesson when they don't guard the three. And that's what happened today. As the Lakers fell to the Golden State Warriors 115-113. Carelessness, lackadaisical effort on defense, and a fourth quarter letdown like we haven't seen yet this season. But it was bound to happen. It was, and I've said it before, you just not focused. This is the kind of thing that happens. They had easily a game that they should have put away a long time ago. They were up by 17, 19, and they should have just gone ahead and finished them off. But you let them back in, especially with the way they can shoot, especially the way Curry can shoot, and that's all it takes. But here today to talk about the game is a good man indeed. It is LakerTom from LakerHolics.com and also his great Medium.com site. LakerTom, a disappointing effort today. They still have the best record in the NBA, but now they're tied with the Clippers, and now we're just going to hear it all over the place.
If you play with fire, you can get burnt.
I've told you this all season,
Yeah. Yeah, but it's, it's really nothing to worry about. It's just one of those games where a combination of just letting the Warriors get back in the game, not worrying and thinking that you can step on the pedal at any time in the game. Some lackadaisical plays, bad call that the refs missed when Draymond traveled. And then you can't ignore Steph Curry in those situations. And that last three that he drained was a critical shot. And you end up with having to, even we got the ball back with like 8 or 9 seconds left and should have had a good shot, but we really just did not play it well. LeBron had a couple of traveling calls in the last 2 minutes, which I've never seen him do before. It's just one of those situations where you have it, and it's going to happen once in a while. It is the NBA, and you have to remember that. And Steph Curry is the greatest three-point shooter in the history of the game. And you knew at some point in time that he was going to come back to haunt you. The Warriors got some great play by lots of different players. The Lakers had some great play by certain players, but really they fell apart in the fourth quarter.
Absolutely.
And that was the cost of the game. I thought they still had a chance to win. They did not get a good play off. That was a very tough three-pointer that LeBron took. KCP, I know he was angry at KCP for not taking a shot a couple of times. And, it's just one of those things that you're going to have to live with. The only thing good about it is that hopefully when we play the Bucks, we won't have a 2-game losing streak.
Well, it's about time that the Lakers had something that woke them up, and this definitely woke them up.
Yeah, because
it sends a message that they just can't go laissez-faire. And we talked about this when they were going through those games.
I think they understand that. They understand all of that. Gerald, they go over it, and it's just the nature. It's just human nature. I mean, the Lakers broke off to a 19-point lead, and then they let them come back. Then they broke off to a 16-point lead, and then they let them come back. And surprisingly, it wasn't the starters from the Warriors who did the damage. It was the reserves.
Eric Pascal. And
Eric Pascal is, he's like a version of PJ Tucker. He's an undersized, rugged guy who knows how to bounce people off of it. I thought there were some bad calls in the games. I thought Schroeder definitely was that was an offensive foul when they knocked him down. You let the game get close and anything can happen, and everything did happen. So you just write it off. And
I thought there were some poor choices. I thought there were some poor choices.
There always
by
are in games like this because, we took some bad shots. We really had very little fluidity in the fourth quarter. And defensively, we were lackadaisical a lot of the time. We tried to turn it on and off defensively. Even though the Warriors don't have Klay Thompson, they aren't, and Draymond Green's a shadow of what he used to be. Steph had a terrible game shooting from outside, and even missed several clutch shots down the stretch that could have put the game away and out of reach. The Lakers made their free throws at the end. Dennis missed that one free throw, but LeBron made 2 clutch free throws that were really important. It's, I think you just don't, you don't worry about it. It's just going to happen. It's going to happen a couple of times, 2 or 3 times this season. And all you have to do is just come back from it and refocus and come back in. Hey, Lee, how you doing, man?
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
Pretty Lee good. Robinson is back joining us once again. It's a pleasure to have him back on. I truly appreciate you coming back on the show. Not exactly the way you want to come back on with the Lakers, unfortunately, getting beat. But I want to hear your thoughts on today's game. The floor is yours, my friend. It's been long overdue since you're back on, so we truly appreciate it. Tell me your thoughts. I wish it would have been under better circumstances, but we're here nonetheless.
Yeah,
the colors, though, Lee.
Do what you deserve. So, Lakers had a very casual attitude to defend today. I don't know. I mean, Wiggins hit walk-up three-pointers. How many layups did they give up in the fourth quarter? It was like a layup drill. Boy, I could have scored I could have got to the rack for a couple of layups with that defense. So, it's a long season, just one of those games. Golden State, give them credit. They wouldn't quit. They kept coming back.
Lakers, the Clippers, and they did it to us.
Yeah, I thought when Kuz dropped those 3 triples, that might give us a little breathing room, but they came right back. So, got a good team. They got a tough team.
Yes, they do. They do have a tough team. Well, as long as Curry's there, it does make them. They have the ability to go ahead and beat anyone at any given point in time. But there's still points where the Lakers just lack focus, and we've seen that in the early part of this season. Thought they kind of got shooken up after the vehement argument at a press conference, or just basically the thoughts of Anthony Davis when he was really upset with the Lakers defense, and they went on a dominating run in the past 7 to 10 days where there was really something on both ends of the floor that they were really concentrating and looked really good at, but they fell back into some old habits. Not guarding the 3, I think, is killing the Lakers, and it kills a lot of these teams because as these teams are getting more and more proficient year in, year out with the 3-pointer, because they're all being more acclimated to the 3, it's becoming more and more way of life. People, these teams are just not adjusting defensively. So, Tom, I ask you this. I mean, when it comes to defending out there on the perimeter, what do the Lakers need to do as far as just to even get a little bit better out there? Because like I said, it's so hard to see so many 3-pointers given up. I know that's the way the defenses are trending, but I'm not sure I'm always liking that idea.
Well, I think the Lakers made some major changes in their defense this year, and a lot of it was designed to prevent players from coming down and actually to prevent the elite scorers, the Hardens, the guys who basically have the ball in their hands, Dame Lillard, Harden. So they really wanted to stop them from getting to the rim and getting easy pull-up jump shots. And so that's why they made this switch where they're really trapping and doubling and hedging on the outside, on the ball handlers when they bring it down. And actually, before the game, the Lakers ranked third in the third best 3-point percentage defensively in the league. They only allowed 32.4% shooting tonight by the Warriors. So it's not
didn't seem like it at times.
Well, it may have seemed that way. I mean, you had Wiggins. You had a couple of situations. You had what always happens in these games is somebody has a career game. Kelly Oubre, who started the season 1 for 25. Had an excellent game. Wiggins, who really hadn't shown anything, all of a sudden hits 3 straight threes, sort of just like Kuzma, who hadn't shown anything in the first half, hit 3 straight threes. And the whole thing comes down to what you said about attention. The Lakers basically thought this was going to be a cakewalk. They went out in the first quarter and proved that it was going to be a cakewalk. The Warriors caught up. The Lakers said, well, no problem. We'll just go out and build up the 16-point lead again. You get into the fourth quarter, the Warriors come out and close to tie it. The Lakers come back and build up an 11-point lead again. And the same story happens that this is the NBA. These are the 300 best basketball players in the world. And there's some pretty good guys on the Warriors, including the greatest shooter in the history of the game. And Draymond Green, who is, despite what you say, still is a very savvy basketball player. And so, I don't think it's a big thing that we lost the game. In fact, I wasn't even worried about whether we'd win or lose the game because I think the team is so deep and so good this year that I'm not even worried about the Nets. I'm not worried about I'm not worried about the Clippers.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, the Clippers have looked very good in the past week. Let's just put it there, right there as is.
Yeah, it's one game. It's one game. We've won 11 games. We've lost 4. It's not a bad record. We're still picking up the pieces. We've lost a couple of games. I think 2 games this year that I would say we should have won that we lost. But in the bottom line, it's early in the season still. This is sometimes you need a loss. That's the honest truth about it. You need a loss so that you get refocused again and you remember that, hey, this is the NBA. And as good as we are and as good as LeBron James is and as good as Anthony Davis is, you can get beat. We got a 7-game road trip that's going to start now with games against the Bucks, the 76ers, and the Celtics. That will be a real test for us. So let's see what we do on that road trip. And this hopefully will make them a little sharper, a little less prone to be unfocused, and we'll get an opportunity to see the team really start to peak again. We don't want to lose 2 games in a row. That's one of the focuses that this team had last year. And I think it's one of the focuses we're going to see for them this year. So let's see what happens on the road trip.
Well, let's see what happens on the road trip. But, Lee, I want to get you in here. I know, again, I just appreciate you stopping by as well. With the road trip coming up, like LakerTom said, 7 games, starts in Milwaukee. Milwaukee is actually going to be pretty upset heading into the game as well because they just lost a close deal against Brooklyn, an early litmus test for both these teams where they're matching up for power in the East. I want to hear your thoughts, though, on the upcoming road trip. And do you think this is going to send a signal out there to the Lakers that they need to go ahead and pay more attention and focus heading into Milwaukee?
Well, Gerald, my pleasure to join you guys. Yeah, I mean, they don't want to lose 2 in a row. We know that. I mean, that was the mantra all last year. So we know they're going to come out with some attention to detail. I mean, but those are tough teams. Milwaukee's tough. Philly's, if Embiid's locked in, and I don't know that COVID situation. I know they had several players out. Boston, Boston's going to be amped up for the Lakers, so it's going to be a tough go. But the Lakers, if Anthony Davis comes out ready to go, today he was kind of casual. I mean, I know he grabbed a ton of boards and but he wasn't really the aggressive around the basket Anthony Davis we like to see. So I think it's, it's up to, and LeBron wasn't either. So I think they'll be ready. So yeah, 7 games? Who else they got on the trip? They should go 5-2.
Well, next games again are Thursday at Milwaukee, Saturday at Chicago, next Monday, a week from today, at Cleveland, then the Wednesday after that at Philadelphia, at Detroit, at Boston, and at Atlanta. So on the surface, it looks like something the Lakers should be able to take care of, especially they're undefeated on the road this year. Yeah. So that's something that needs to be in mind. They seem to have a better focus on the road.
This is Raphael from NBA Draft Junkies.com, and you are listening to the Lakers Fast Break.
Check out what's been going on with the Pop Culture Cosmos Show and the PCC Multiverse.
I see the potential for basically like another Netflix kind of paradigm shift where here comes this other major player. They have a ton of resources. Apple could change the way that entertainment is consumed.
They say it's the only time this year that you'll have stars from each brand battling each other, and we know it's not going to be the case, but they like to say that, and more power to them, I guess.
Well, it's a big first step, bringing all those superheroes together. There were definitely some parts of the movie that I really enjoyed, and then there were some parts that I thought just kind of fell short of expectation.
Part of it has to be something to do with how it's being promoted. And this is a thing where audiences do not agree with critics.
That's the Pop Culture Cosmos Show.
And the PCC Multiverse, every week on Apple Podcasts.
And over a dozen of your favorite streaming and podcasting options. But LakerTom, before we head on out, I want to hear your thoughts on how they can go ahead and have that type of mentality. Why are they doing so much better on the road than they are at home?
You know, the funny thing about it is that when you're on the road, sometimes you have fewer distractions. And this is a team that spent all of that time in the bubble and only had a couple of months off. And I think that even though the players now are supposed to be doing the same thing that all of us are doing and you know, really hunkering down in our bubbles and staying away from adding people to the bubble and trying to limit your contacts and so forth. And I think the Lakers have done a good job of that so far. We haven't had any really situations like just like Lee said, some of these teams have really run into problems with COVID, you know. And it's one of those things that we talked about before the season that is one of the wild cards that you have in this anti-bubble year, that it still has no fans in the stands, still has no real home court advantage. And actually, when you look at the Lakers, the home court disadvantage in a sense that you'd think the friendly rims at Staples would be something to our advantage, but it doesn't necessarily turn out that way. Guys are sleeping in their own beds. They're staying with their own families. So, you know, maybe this will be a trigger for the team to bond again on the road. The last time we went on the road and that 4-game streak that we pulled together, it was a really good experience for the players. And they got some really strong chemistry built during that period. And I'm hoping that we'll see the same thing this time. I think they're ready for the challenge, you know, and I don't, it's kind of funny. I just look at this team as being so good and so different from last year's team where we really totally had to rely upon LeBron and AD almost every single game in order to win. And this team is so deep and so talented that I'm not worried about the individual games. I think they'll get it together. I think that Vogel has proven that he's a great coach that makes great adjustments. I think that LeBron and AD are coasting a little bit now. And sometimes when you're coasting, it is hard to pull it together in the fourth quarter and come up with that clutch shot and so forth. AD really started off with, you know, the 6 assists in the first quarter. He was rebounding very well and assisting very well, and the Lakers didn't need him to score. And he never really got into a great rhythm. He even missed a couple of free throws, which is very unusual for him. He still is missing free throws. So, you know, I'm not worried about this game. I'm not worried about the road trip. I'm not worried about the season. I think that we're the best team, and we'll prove it over the long run.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's even more fun on a day like today. But before we head to you, Jamie, and thanks so much for coming on board, I want to go ahead and ask Lee. I had this set up for you, my friend. When you look at tonight's game, which player stands out for you as far as somewhere, an area of improvement or someone that they need to put a little bit more focus on? Because for me, it was Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I mean, he only took 3 shots tonight, 23 minutes. The man is, I don't know if he's at the top or near the top of 3-point shooting right now. And to have him not a part of the offense, I thought was kind of you don't have to give him 15 shots. Just give him 7 or 8 quality looks a game. I think that's all you can ask. I mean, that's all that needs to be asked, because he'll focus more on defense. He'll stay more alert. He'll stay more attentive. But tonight they seemingly it's one of those nights that gets talked about when it concerns KCP, that he has a tendency to disappear in games. And to me, this is one of those games.
Yeah, LeBron got upset with him not taking that 3. Well, hey, how about letting me touch the ball at some point in the game? Then maybe I'll at least have feel for it to shoot that 3. But yeah, he should have let that fly. He was wide open. To me, it's AD. I know I'm tough, but to whom much is given, much is required. AD is the guy. So get down there, bang it. I mean, you come down at the end of the game. You got Lee is switched off on him. Throw me the ball. Demand the ball. they yo-yoing with the ball and they force the timeout. You got a mismatch down there on the block. Throw me the ball and let me go to work. I want more out of AD. I mean, Kuz did his thing. He's a catch and shoot guy. Trez, he's going to give up a lot of points at the rim. I mean, Golden State shot 64%. I mean, you talked about the 3-point prowess, but at the rim, the 2 points, they was 32 out of 50. So they shot 64% from the field from inside the arc. But with me, it's AD. Everybody else did what they're supposed to do. I would love to see, like you said, KCP's got to get more shots. So that's up to the coach to run some stuff to get him some looks, too.
One thing I also want to ask, and he's here now, and I'm so glad he got the chance to join us. It is the man with 5 great things on his mind.
How's it going, guys?
Well, but I don't know if it's 5 so great things today, but it is 5 things that he's going to be posting at Lakerholics.com. You got to catch it today at Lakerholics.com. And Jamie's tweet wasn't kind of a game that we wanted to see on a day that should be remembered each and every year that happens, and why we're here and why we have this day. But before we go ahead and finish off with that, like I started the show with, I want to hear your thoughts on today's game. Anything that really stood out, why the Lakers disappointed the way they did?
I mean, I think one of the things is that Golden State is like the one team that actually matches up, when healthy, matches up really well against the Lakers. We don't have a great answer for Steph. Few teams have a great answer for a healthy Steph Curry. Like, it's not our problem exclusively. Steph Curry is a problem for the NBA when he's playing like this. But Draymond Green can bang with AD, and that's the other thing. Like, they are like kind of the OG small ball team that everybody else has adopted, and they out small balled us tonight. They played the better small ball game. When it came down to crunch time, they executed better than we did at the game that Steve Kerr and those guys all kind of ended. Yes, they're missing Klay Thompson, and I think that shows up as much on the defensive end as anywhere else. But they're going to be a problem. They're going to be a big problem for the NBA this year, and I think that's what they showed tonight. I think that this is a bigger win for them than loss for us, to be honest. This is an establishment win for the Warriors, and that was what I came away with. Everybody kind of sold the Warriors out to begin the season, I want to say. Maybe play-in tournament, 8 seed, and they got a lot of pride. They got a lot of skill. And those Steph and Dre and Wiseman, who is – I think is going to be phenomenal.
He looked like 19, but you see a lot of promise there. In 2 or 3 years,
he's going to be so good. Dude.
He's going to be very special. But right now, it is a learning process, and unfortunately, school was in session today because
school was in session today. But,
for him. So,
but they still have Stephen Green their 5-minute lineup when it came down to it was better than our 5-minute lineup when it came down to it, and not like by a small margin. So that to me is like the biggest thing the Lakers can take away from this game is, well, that's a lesson, right? Like, a lot of teams haven't been providing us lessons to get better. We've kind of been beating up on teams a lot lately, and teams we should be beating up on. Let's be honest. If you don't want to lose to Houston, you don't want to lose to OKC. They did their job in those games. So this was a really good test. And I don't want to say that we failed rather than Golden State passed, but I guess when it's a win or lose situation, technically we did fail. And I want to echo Lee Rob's sentiment. Much is given on Martin Luther King Day. Much has been given, and I think that it's just an important thing to remember. And I'm really glad that it's been spoken about here, and so I appreciate that very much.
Oh, no problem. Again, this is a very special day. We need to remember and honor the great legacy that he has. As I said at the beginning of the show, before you even guys were here, is that it's a very special today, and we should always honor and remember the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Something I didn't see as much of, if you're not tuning into TNT today, I was kind of disappointed because I understand with the political climate that's out there and whatnot. I saw a lot of this, I saw a lot of that, but I didn't see exactly why, and especially on social media, enough of why today is today. And that's the problem, I think, that we have forgotten about on a day like today. We think, oh, yeah, it's just a day off or the post office closed or something like that. We got to remember why this day exists, and it's because of someone very special who spoke such great things. And unfortunately, it gets lost in our society sometimes in our hustle and bustle, and we're all looking at our phones and internet and all that stuff. So, hopefully people will remember that at least before the night is up. Please remember why today is today. But before we head on out, guys, because unfortunately today also meant a loss for the Lakers. And again, they're going out on a tough 7-game road trip, but I think they should, as far as they've been playing on the road, continue to do well. LakerTom, what are you working on at Lakerholics.com? Hopefully it's some good things that'll cheer people up, including me.
Well, I just like to add one thing to what Jamie was saying. The stat that jumps out at me is the points in the paint. We won the points in the paint 58-56.
Barely.
56.
That's not even a victory. That's not a victory.
Yeah, that's really a Pyrrhic victory at best.
Well, that's what concerns me when you talk about Montrezl Harrell. I mean, right. I've told you about the size, the issues that's there. I mean, Montrezl Harrell, he's not going to give you what you need defensively, and you saw it again today. There were several lapses that he had. A great offensive player, just terrific offensive player, and I truly appreciate his hustle and his energy that he brings to the team. But you see the lapses there, and in a playoff series, how effective can he be? That's the larger question I have.
Well,
can I just say real quick? Against Golden State, we'll miss Dwight Howard.
Go ahead, Jamie. Sorry.
Against Golden State, we're going to miss Dwight Howard. The mobile amount of defense, Dwight Howard is why you have drop back coverage, right? Or the Golden State Warriors, I should say, is why you have drop back coverage, because that is where they kill you. That's where they get their points. That's how they generate.
Right, but up until this game,
why it was a good test.
Teams were shooting below last year's percentage at the rim.
Agreed.
We were blocking as many shots at the rim as we did last year. Our defense ranked better in almost every single category.
But Gasol matches up
and one of the things, and let me finish. One of the things that really irks me about people that overly criticize Trez's defense, he averaged last year 1.1 blocks per game.
Yeah.
Compared to 1.5 blocks per game for JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard. If you factor in the fact that he also led the league in charges drawn in the paint with 30 charges drawn in 60 games, he ends up with about 1.5 blocks or stops per game in the paint, which is almost identical to what Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee did. You asked what article I'm working on. The article I'm working on is basically trades that the Los Angeles Lakers, who don't really need a trade, might make.
Wow. I'm just going to say with Montrezl Harrell, it's not the blocks, it's not the charges, it's not any of that. It's the rotations and the fact that teams consistently go at him, and they go at Kuzma too. I mean, Lee, what do you see in regards to the defensive end? Do you see anything as far as it's concerned? I mean, I'll get back to you, LakerTom, real quick. I'll get back to you. But, Lee, do you see anything as far as on the rotations that they could be doing better?
Yeah, well, tonight it's just not a good, that's not a good game to analyze. Wes Matthews came in the game, and his man immediately blew past him twice. As far as the rotations, today, all day on the Golden State, it ran a 2-man game, and they try to trap Steph, and they swing it back to the open man. He drive and kick it to the next guy, and he walked in for a layup. So I think the scheme against Golden State, they may have to just kind of rethink that scheme. When Steph was driving, let him shoot the twos. Let him shoot them. Let Steph finish at the rim if he's going to finish. Let him shoot the little leaners, but don't collapse and leave guys wide open.
Just don't foul him.
So I gotta.
Easier said than done.
Steph's a problem for everybody.
As far as LT and Dwight, the numbers. I mean, Dwight. When you compare Trey's numbers to Dwight defensively, though, Dwight. How many minutes did he average compared to how many Trey's had last year? How many shots did he alter? It's not about block shots always or the loud stats, but it's just about being solid on defense. Love Trey, but just some things that's not his strength. We know it when we got him. So I'm not killing him about him. He's hustling, he's doing the best he can out there. That's not his game. But that is Dwight's game.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying is that we're getting
this just a concern. I'm not saying I'm not bashing him. I'm just saying it's a concern, LakerTom. That's all it is.
Trey shot 7 for 8 tonight. That's ridiculous.
And when you have points,
he scored the paint like a demon.
And when you have points in the paint being an issue, who is the person that's supposed to be guarding the paint?
It's one game, Gerald.
I know. Again, it's a concern, but this is something I brought up before.
Greg Vogel, he's improved dramatically on defense. He's one of the best guys at taking charges. He's still a young player. He's still getting used to the system that we have.
Totally.
You look at other areas. You look at the areas that he's improved in, which give me a lot of good faith that he's going to improve his defense. Because I think any player that comes into the Lakers environment with the coaching and the team leadership that we have is going to get better and better at defense. There's two areas that you look at Trez's improvement. He was he shot in the 50s from the free throw line last year. He's shooting 70%, over 70% so far this year. He's also never been a guy who even had the ability to take a 15-foot jumper, and yet he's been extremely effective on his 2-point jumpers and very accurate. So, it's everybody keeps saying that
you love Trez, Tom.
I don't buy this whole thing because the numbers tell us that this defense is better than last year's defense. And we made a major change, and the change was that we went for a smarter defensive center in Marc Gasol, who is having as good a season in fewer minutes, Lee, than Dwight or JaVale had last year. And he's made a tremendous difference in just the number of steals and blocks that he's getting. He's a smart, savvy player who is better on his rotations, even though he doesn't have the speed or the athleticism that JaVale and Dwight did. And by the same token, Trez has contributed mightily in almost every area of the game. He's one of the reasons why our defense and our offense are top 5 in the league. So you look at the numbers, the simple fact is that the Lakers are the best defensive team in the league. You said it yourself at the start of this show. It's not that we don't have a good defense. It's that we just didn't pay attention tonight. We allowed a team to take advantage of us. And I'll go back to what Lee was saying earlier. What the big disappointment for me was the defense of Anthony Davis, because he didn't get any blocks at the rim at all. He got a behind the block on a guy doing a fadeaway jumper who jumped right into his window. But he didn't see him block anything up real close underneath the basket. He drew a lot of fouls under there, and he ended up on the floor like he does a dozen times a game. So it's just one game where the defense didn't come through. I think we may not be ranked number 1 after this one game because we're dealing with a small sample size with just, 15 games into the season. But I sure don't think it's a reason for panic nor a reason to throw Trez under the bus and think that our problems are defense. Our problems were taking the game too lightly. Our problems were falling into the trap of a trap game, which happens.
Concern and throwing under the bus are two different things. And you forgot the fact that when I said I had a concern about his defensive play and his defensive rotations, I also said he rebounded, provided a lot of energy, and is very good offensively. So that's not something I don't want to go back and forth and argue with you, Tom, because you take things out of context with me sometimes. I said I had a concern. It's a concern, and it's a concern only.
But you have a concern every game, Gerald. That's the problem.
Well, that's not a problem.
It's one game,
It's not a problem. It's also something that I say the good and I say what can be worked on. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're a coach. You've been a coach on many occasions, Tom. Do you, even if your team wins by 40, do you actually go ahead and say everything was perfect? Do you always say that there's areas of improvement? Always you say there's areas of improvement. And the Lakers, even if they went through a perfect season,
there are always areas of improvement. I just don't necessarily think that the areas of improvement that I guess what I'm saying, Gerald, is I don't agree with a Twitter feed that says that we traded away some of our defense, our rim protection, for offense. Because I think our rim protection overall, and the numbers prove it, is better than it was last year.
Okay.
And our defense
that's good. That's a good opinion.
Better than it was last year. Can it improve? Can Trez improve? Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, and there's always, in fact, he's only played 14 games.
But the bigger problem is Anthony Davis, who ranks 7th or 8th in defensive rating, for the team rather than number one like he was last year.
Tom, just to be clear, though, AD did have 3 blocks tonight, so I don't know that you should get on too much about his blocks in a game where
he still does not in the top 5 on the Lakers for players who played over 10 minutes.
But it's only 14 games, dude.
But until 4 games ago, he was ranking last defensively of all of the players on the Lakers team.
Right.
And we had 7 guys who were better than our 104.0 defensive rating as a team. 7 players, and Anthony Davis was not one of those players.
He'll be there.
And the only thing
I
is
think
right
he will
now,
too.
and the only thing is right now with Anthony Davis, the thing is that you cannot make him, or a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year like you would last year, because last year he was such an initiator for the defense, not only verbally but also by actions. This year, like you said, statistically, it's just not there. And unless there's a dramatic turnaround there.
To his credit, in the last 4 games before tonight, his defensive rating was 91.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot better.
That's an outstanding defensive rating.
And what happened? Those were 4 routes. So, I mean, you
right,
see
but they
there.
were also 4 routes because of his defense.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If the Lakers pay attention and focus on the defensive end, it's not a question. They're the
every 4th or 5th game,
that's the key thing
does that. Every 4th or 5th game, AD comes out soft or whatever it is. I don't know. But
it's early, man.
Lee, I'm so glad you're back, though, Jamie. I'm so glad you're back.
Sorry to be gone so long. I apologize.
Well, Gerald needs you there, Jamie. You're going to have to make sure to be there.
Listen. All I do is speak sense. Personal sense filtered through these eyes.
LakerTom's wife made us cookies, so I'm not going to argue with that. I can't argue with that.
Wait, real quick. 2 questions about the cookies. Did she do all the decorating by hand?
Yes.
Damn. 2, did she make everything? Like she did everything. What?
And number 3,
what the hashtag, ampersand, percentage sign, dollar sign?
Yeah, you didn't even get the full load of it. The full load
hold
she
on.
does.
Number 3 is the most important question that LakerTom actually divulged in confidence to me the other day. How many times did you run into the kitchen or sneak behind her back to go in the kitchen to have some of the cookie batter?
Oh,
I'm a cookie dough fiend. So
how many times?
I must have eaten the.
Can I guess? Let me guess.
I ate my whole share of cookies.
I'm going to say 15 times. 15.
Yeah,
I'm guessing 15.
Over under on 15 times you went into the kitchen.
No, it's over on that. She works for she does these cookies for all of our friends and relatives. My grandson's entire cross-country team. They have special cookies with bicycles on them. She did every single superhero that you could possibly get. You guys got a couple of.
Why the hell doesn't she do a podcast about making cookies?
Of the superhero cookies for other people,
dude.
She's in contact with at least a dozen different cookie cutter manufacturers in Etsy. It's just
that's what I'm saying.
It's just crazy.
Right,
Lee, next year we'll include you in the batch.
Lee, please get Lee on that list.
Yeah, get Lee on the batch.
Those cookies are good.
Do it this way. Send me half and send Lee the other half because it was a boatload of cookies. I'm gonna host across the Potomac in that boat of cookies, man.
Well, we'd appreciate it.
Well, I'll tell you what.
You got a kick out of Gerald's Mrs. LakerTom reference in the blog.
I'm just going to say thank you, Mrs. LakerTom.
Yes,
and Sydney and Serena very much appreciated their named cookies. So
yes, my kids also had a blast, but my whole family did. And again, thank you to Mrs. LakerTom for doing that. We are making arrangements to reciprocate in kind for that. But
you don't have to reciprocate.
We will anyways. But
she's a closet baker. She wants to have a bakery.
On the list. Get Lee on that list. That's all I say.
And Lee, it's very nice to see you in person. I'm very happy to make your now visual acquaintance.
All right. Well, see, we're all smiling and happy now that we're talking about cookies instead of the Lakers game. We're signaling the ref for a quick timeout, but we'll be back with more of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. Hey, Lakers fans. Looking for the best place to go for up-to-date news, information, original videos, articles, podcasts, opinion pieces, and discussions about the world champion Los Angeles Lakers? Well, look no further than LakerHolics.com. With a legion of followers always there talking about everything Lakers and the NBA, there's no better place to go to share your fandom as the team heads toward another championship run. So stop by and be part of the conversation today at LakerHolics.com. Lee, before we head on out, I want you to go ahead and take us home in regards to what you're looking forward to in the next week for the Lakers. I mean, they come off this loss. Obviously, it's going to help kickstart some better focus. And what a better way to go ahead and focus on when you've got Giannis Antetokounmpo staring down at you on Thursday.
So we got Giannis, we got the Bulls on Saturday, Cleveland on Monday. And
Cleveland's playing good defense
on Wednesday. So we should take 3 out of 4. I mean, the Bulls they're tough. They just got the big guy. They got Markin them back, so they'll be putting up a ton of points. So if we're not ready to play, that's going to be a tough game. But Milwaukee's the game. That's the toughest one on the early part.
Cleveland's got to have its backcourt back if they're going to be able to have a chance to win. If they don't have – Sexton and Garland have both been out for several games.
Wow,
so
yeah.
Did they get COVID?
I don't know.
No, it's injuries. Injury related.
They're a little challenge scoring, but yeah, I mean, all them games are going to be tough. Any of them teams can beat us. I think any team on this list can beat us except for maybe Detroit. My home team.
Well, that's our trap. That's our trap game.
That's our trap game, Lee.
Well,
Gerald's already worried about Detroit.
You know why I'm worried? Because Kuzma is going to show off, and he's going to try and take all the shots, and he's going to make LeBron angry. And by the second quarter, LeBron's going to go ahead and either smack him upside the head during a timeout or do something that he's going to be so mad at. Because Kuzma's going to want to show off right in his hometown. So, yeah.
Well, they're probably going to pass the ball to him a lot so that he can show off in his hometown.
Yeah, well, he better be shooting the three like he can.
He wants to show Lee that he knows he's got Laker fans there.
We'll see what happens. I'm hoping for the best, though, for this Lakers trip. Again, 7-0 so far on the road, so they've done very well there. So I'm looking forward to great things. I'm looking forward to recoup from tonight's loss against the Golden State Warriors. But before we head on out, Jamie, what are you working on for 5 great things coming up this week at LakerHolics.com?
I mean, we're going to break down the game a little bit and caution people that this is a test game. Like I said, it was a bigger deal that Golden State won than it was that we lost. Like, we're the defending champs. Like, everybody's going to bring their A game. Like I said, they out-small-balled us down the stretch, and Frank will do a good job, and the team will do a good job taking this into the film room, working on something in practice, and coming out better on the other end of it. Frankly, if we're going to lose any game against the Warriors, I'd rather start losing now so that we can adjust rather than in the playoffs or something like that, where you're like, oh, snap, this isn't what we're expecting. So a good test game. It's early in the season. We haven't had a lot of good test games lately. Been beaten up on imploding Houston and OKC, who's, all but determined to be a lottery team. Not great tests. This was a good test. So, to say that we failed it,
what's your prediction? Lee said 5-2.
On the road trip?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with 4-3, actually. I'm going to go with 4-3. I think that there's going to be a little bit of focus issue here. I think that there's a few guys who the only thing is that it is on the road. And I might take that back because it is on the road, and road teams have been kicking a little bit more butt in the NBA this season. And so I could actually see a 5-2, and that some of those teams might want, like Chicago's the game where I'm thinking that I'm vacillating a lot on, because that team, if the home crowd was there, I think I'd give them a better chance of them beating us. Whereas down the stretch, I think that we'll just have more talent and they won't have that little extra oomph, and that'll just be how it is. So I'll take that one back, and I think we'll win in Chicago. I think our trap game in Detroit's a surefire L, and we might lose against Milwaukee because Milwaukee cares more about it than we do. Just for that, same as Golden State did tonight.
LakerTom, what's your prediction for the road trip? It's always 7-0. You see, there you go. I knew he was going to say 7-0.
I said 6-1 or 7-0. I could see us losing one game, and I think the toughest game on the trip is going to be the 76ers.
There you
Because
go.
I think Embiid is the challenge.
Plus, they traditionally play very well at home. They've been a very good home team. Last year was a case in question. So I'm going to go with 6-1. I'm going to think positively. You know, LakerTom in the past would have been surprised that I would have said that, but I'm going to go 6-1. I think they're
tell
lost.
my wife to give you cookies next year too.
There you go. See, that's why I'm trying to be on my better side. Less arguments with LakerTom means more cookies for me.
Now we got the cookie godfather here, like, oh, you want some cookies?
There you go.
Oh, you must agree with me before you.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, it's been so great talking to you guys.
I'm the cookie broker.
Yes, he's the cookie broker indeed. But if you want to talk to us, including the cookie broker over here, it is at LakerTom on Twitter, also as well at Lakers Fast Break, or you can hang out with Lee, Jamie, LakerTom, or myself, Sean Grice, aka Magic Man. Hope he's doing well. He's somewhere in the shadows, like he was last time, trying to collect some type of top secret information, another dossier perhaps. Like, that was so weird last time. He was such in the dark. I thought I was talking to someone from the CIA. But he is actually also going to be at Lakerholics.com. If you are a Lakers fan, there is no better place to go to than Lakerholics.com or our growing Facebook group, Lakerholics. Thank you so much for being part of today's show. Again, the Lakers did unfortunately lose 115-113, but they go on the road. How successful will they be? Are they going to be more like LakerTom and Lee with a really strong road win record? Or are they going to be like Jamie Sweet that's We'll have to wait and see. But Lee, Tom, Jamie, I truly appreciate you joining us today. And I will see you on Thursday after the game in Milwaukee, right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.